So I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but if you could start by just introducing who you are and what you do, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Esteban Reyes. I've spent most of my time since I guess moving here to the US building companies, and more recently I've started investing, and that has been in the last 8 years. Been part of two funds that I helped launch. Currently, I run a fund called Zenda Capital. And what we do is back founders that are bringing modern technology to old industries as early as possible. So we're usually backing them at the pre-seed and seed stage, and then becoming their trusted partner as they go through their build journey. And where we try to be most helpful is in that 0 to 1 phase, where there are a lot of um, questions that are really challenging, and where there's no playbook that you can go read off of and follow. So what we hear from founders is that because we've been founders and operators ourselves, having started, scaled, and exited a number of companies, we tend to be able to go really deep in helping them identify the key issues and then bring in resources and options to the table to help overcome them. Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. I would also love to know, just before we kind of take a deep dive into that, you personally, what drew you into entrepreneurship and eventually venture capital?
Yeah, so um, going back to my origin story. So when I was about 6 years old, I heard a story of a coal miner who lived in Colombia in the 1940s. And this coal miner woke up one day and said, I want to find a better pathway for myself and my family. He started looking for opportunity and ended up getting into the US or coming to the US on a cargo plane. Um, Got to New York, learned English, landed a job at a company where he became an executive over the years. So he essentially learned about business, and then ultimately decided to move back to Colombia and start his own company and became a successful entrepreneur. So when I heard that story, I realized that this idea of finding a better pathway was something that really intrigued me and motivated me. And it really cemented my way of thinking when I learned that this coal miner was my grandfather. So that became my North Star for everything that I was doing and interested in. I was always very curious about technology. So I started experimenting with it early on. I was, as far as I know, the youngest radio operator. I think I got licensed when I was like 13 years old, and sitting in a room with, 60-year-olds was quite interesting. And then when I got to the US in the late 90s, while I was flying here, I reminded myself of this story of the coal miner. So I thought that, moving to the US was my way of finding a better pathway, and it was my time to find a company to start. So during college, I learned how to code. I taught myself how to code, and then identified an opportunity to start a business in the lending space, or essentially helping lenders, where we built a platform, a software platform that helped verify all of the borrower information that a borrower presents to a lender when they apply for a loan. Think of like their income, their identity, their employment, their assets. So we grew that business to about 400 bank customers on a bootstrap. We raised very little money just from friends and family, and then sold it to a company called Lender Processing Services, where your father worked, and that's how I met your father. Um, and Yeah, I mean, I guess that taught me that not only you can learn a lot and have a lot of fun while building a company, but eventually you can create a lot of value for everybody involved, including the employees, the shareholders, and yourself. So that was like a more refined version of my North Star. And then I decided that if I could, that's what I wanted to do on a go forward basis. So I was at LPS, which was part of Fidelity, for a few years, running their fraud solutions division. And then I decided that I wanted to go back to build companies. So I left. And while I didn't have like a super exciting idea, I had met a bunch of entrepreneurs through my journey. So I started to hang out with them just to hear what they were up to and so on. And I got really excited about their ideas. So, and they would tell me, hey, I'm going to go raise money. So even though I wasn't thinking of myself as an investor, I would tell them, don't raise the money. I'll give you the money and I'll work with you very closely. So did that a few times, and had some success as well as some learning experiences. We ended up um, launching 8 companies, and then 3 of them worked out, which we exited. So four companies from, I guess, start to exit, including the first company, for a combined total value of $1.1 billion. So then, that sort of gave me some confidence that maybe playing on the investor side was something that I could do well, and got a lot of encouragement from other founders. So then decided to launch a first fund or firm, which was called Les Olas VC. And the thesis then was to focus on companies based in the Southeast. This was pre-COVID. So, doing a lot of these Zoom calls wasn't really a thing yet, at least in the context of making investment decisions. Um, and there was not a lot of capital in the Southeast. And, there was a lot of great talent. So that worked out well. We raised this fund, we invested across 15 companies, and then have had a number of exits where now investors have gotten their money back and a nice return, and there's still, a good amount of upside in the portfolio. So then that informed what I'm doing at Zenda. I decided that after COVID, I didn't want to be constrained to a specific geography, but instead try to focus on specific types of businesses and industries where I thought there was a lot of opportunity. And traditional industries like industrials and so on, are the key drivers of our economy, and they're still like some of the most antiquated industries. So that's why we decided to focus on that specific category.
Very interesting. Um, Going more into your current of Zenda, current venture capital, what can you say about VC perspective on emerging AI companies, with this increasing emergence of artificial intelligence in startups?
Um, I think it's the most exciting technological shift that I've witnessed or I'm witnessing right now. I'm 45, so I guess I saw the early part or the late part of the internet, I should say. Then mobile, then cloud, then machine learning, and nothing has felt so profound as AI in terms of the speed and the level of impact, the speed of improvement and the level of impact. Um, and it's quite tangible, even though we're at the very, very early innings. I mean, it's hard to like know, right? Like a lot of people say, oh, it's day one. It does feel like day one. And the reason I kind of say that is because um, it's not like power yet. Like you see electricity everywhere, right? And it's not quite there yet. Or like the internet, but it's getting there very, very quickly. So when you think about the kind of stuff that you can do with machines that humans can't do, and how that empowers humans to create, to drive progress, is incredibly exciting. Like I'll give you some examples. Um, for example, we've invested in a few companies in the AI space. One enables doctors to not have to worry about their finances at all. And in Brazil, doctors operate as independent contractors. So they get paid by multiple clients. They have to worry about invoicing those clients. They have to worry about, you know, having an accounting that is properly tracked. They have to worry about filing taxes. So they're essentially like a business manager, but doctors are not really trained as business managers. So oftentimes, what they used to do before this company called Cabello was either try to do it themselves or outsource it to an accounting firm, a traditional accounting firm, which is very slow and expensive. And now with Cabello, um, it's almost like magic, right? Like they don't have to worry about anything. They just tell Cabello through a chat interface what they need, and Cabello goes and does it. Send an invoice to the customer, follow up with the customer. Once the payment comes in, reconcile it in their accounting, file their taxes, and so on. And that, you know, it's like a very simple um, need, but a very important need. And to me, that's why again, like I think it's day one. Like next step is essentially telling them what they should be investing in, telling them which customers are the best customers, telling them all these different things, almost like acting as a virtual CFO, which they never thought they could have. Um, so yeah, I mean, I believe is the biggest opportunity um, that you know entrepreneurs and investors have, and as such, we're very excited at Zenda to be focused on that kind of opportunities.
So, speaking about those kinds of opportunities, I'd love to hear any advice that you have for current entrepreneurs looking to, you know, create a startup, either using AI or not. Is there any advice that you've learned through your experiences that you can provide them?
Yeah, I mean, a few things. So, and some of these things are like quite obvious now. Maybe they weren't as obvious a year or 2 years ago. But the speed at which you can build new products using AI, so like eating your own dog food, is quite impressive. We're seeing pretty much every single portfolio company having a significant increased productivity without hiring more engineers. And this is because they're using tools like Cursor or Poolside, which make their engineers more effective, more efficient too. So that's number one. Like again, quite obvious, but if you're kind of thinking about building products in the old way, you're already at a disadvantage because most people are thinking about how to apply the use of AI in order to build better products faster. The second thing is we've seen this big wave of companies focusing on helping companies drive efficiency. Like, for example, call centers, right? Traditionally, there's a lot of human work involved in a call center, like a BPO, a business process outsourcing company. So there's a number of AI startups that promise to replace the need for humans and things like taking inbound calls in a call center for customer support. You know, you're talking then to an agent, but it's an AI agent, which is highly scalable, cheaper, and so on. Same thing on the BPO side. So like, um, especially in traditional industries or legacy industries, you have a lot of BPO work because you have systems that are disconnected. They don't really talk well with one another because they're very old. So you got to have people in the middle as the connector, like taking data from system A, putting them into system B, and doing that all day long. Um, so there's a number of startups that are looking to automate that. Um, and the good news is that when you're pitching cost reduction that is significant, and then eating into a labor budget, there's a lot of revenue that you can get because humans are or people are very expensive, right? Employees are very expensive. So if you're now selling software to replace human work, you can charge quite a bit for it. But a lot of people are doing it, and it's almost like race to the bottom because then it's who can do it for less, right? Like at the beginning is very impactful. The beginning is like quite novel. Oh, you know, you're helping me get rid of half my staff and reducing my cost by 80%, fantastic. But then the next startup comes in and says, well, I can do it, for half of what that startup is doing it. And then again, becomes a race to the bottom. So the key is, how do you build defensibility and uniqueness? And that ultimately boils down mostly to proprietary data that you can develop in the process of delivering those services, so that you create and not only an advantage, but a barrier that if others are looking to come in, it's harder or impossible. So it depends on the business model, it depends on the industry, but thinking very, very uh, clearly about how do you build that defensibility is I think more important now than ever. And then more recently at Zenda, we've seen um, this kind of like shift from just pure software startups, which 10 years ago were the thing that most investors wanted, because there was this idea of like capital efficiency. Hardware is expensive, it's slow, it's hard. So let's just invest in software companies. They're higher margin, they're, as I said, more capital efficient and so on. But I think it's becoming harder and harder to get to that defensibility that I was mentioning earlier with just software, unless you have unique data, which is again also very hard. So we're starting to see more full stack solutions that include hardware, software, and even some services on top, like a human in the loop that makes the whatever the offering is, superior in combination with the hardware and the software. So one example of that is a company that we recently invested in called Dockware, and these are some ex SpaceX engineers that developed a computer vision product that is installed in warehouse docks, in order to track all the different packages that go in and out of warehouses. And by just reading the image, the platform can calculate dimensions of the package, identify any damages, eventually looking to replace barcodes. Today most of the logistics industry operates with barcodes, which requires people going and scanning, which is very expensive, obviously, and then also creating um, a digital twin of every single shipment that is sent, um, and which creates like a high fidelity record where that shipment has been. So like if you shipped it from point A to point B and there was no sign of damage, but it goes from point B to point C, what changed, right? Like what changed in that digital record from point B to point C? And if something changed, then you know who's responsible for whatever happened to that package. And this company not only built the hardware, they designed it from scratch, they built it from scratch, they developed the software, they developed the models. And the reason is because whatever was available didn't quite work well. This is an order of magnitude cheaper and better. But we think that those kind of companies that go full stack will have a higher level of defensibility. So you can't like force that into starting a company, but if you're starting a company, thinking about all that is, in my opinion, really important.
Now, I'd love to touch on the mental side of entrepreneurship because I think that's something that's not often talked about. Now, in the last episode, I talked to the co-founder of Colossal Biosciences, and he discussed a lot about resiliency and how important that is for entrepreneurs to have in the roller coaster that they might experience in their profession. What sort of mental characteristics do you think are necessary or very important for entrepreneurs to have in their careers?
Definitely agree with resilience, and I would throw out um, intellectual honesty. What I mean by that is, it's very very easy to fall into the trap of believing your own stories and dissuading yourself, but and ignore like factual data that is in front of you. So I think that's super important for making decisions as an entrepreneur because nobody's going to be there to save you, right? It's rare that somebody comes in and says, "Oh, it's okay," like yeah, you have to figure it out on your own. Um, and the other part of that is just like you know taking the time to think about things, and not always shooting from the hip or reacting. I mean, it's important to move very quickly when you're building a company, but oftentimes, especially like in Silicon Valley, this idea of move fast and break things, and I get there's a lot of value in that, don't take me wrong, but there's another side to that, which is like be thoughtful, like make sure that you're making really calibrated decisions. If you get them wrong, it's fine, it's going to happen, but just understand the first principles of every decision that you're making before you make them. The best analogy that I've heard, which I guess I'll say I thought about it too independently, but then I heard it and somebody explained it really well. I don't know if you've seen this movie, The Martian, with Matt Damon.
Mm-mm.
You should watch it. It's an amazing movie. So I don't want to spoil it for you, but I'll give you like the very, very short version. So this guy is in Mars with a team of astronauts doing some, research project in Mars, and he ends up stranded. And because Mars is so far away and it takes so long to get there, um, they can't just send someone to pick him up. It's going to take a long time, and he doesn't have food. He doesn't have resources. Mars is a very daunting um, planet. Um, so he needs to start to think about how to survive until they can get to him. So he solves every problem that he faces in a very like fast but thoughtful and methodical way. So it just like it resembles entrepreneurship, like the way he approaches every single problem one by one, and the next problem and the next problem is the same thing as building a company. You get the right to be successful as an entrepreneur if you solve the first problem successfully, then the next problem successfully, and on and on and on, and you get more problems solved right versus wrong.
Now, do you see
Or I
any?
should say you get more things right than wrong. That's what I meant to say. Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you see any sort of misconceptions that people have about venture capital or entrepreneurship, or maybe sides of the profession that are not often talked about that you've experienced in your career?
Oof, too many. Um, I mean, I'll try to be brief because I know we don't have unlimited time, but um, on entrepreneurship, I would say there's a misconception that it's cool to be an entrepreneur. It's hard. It's a shit job. Like if things go right, your team gets the credit. And I mean, you got to be okay and actually feel happy about that. If things go wrong, it's your fault. It's not your team's fault. So, um, yeah, I mean, like a lot of people talk about, oh, it's a lonely job, and it is. But like, if you're an entrepreneur, you almost don't care. Like, you don't, like, yeah, you need from time to time peers to talk through things, and things are hard, and you need to be able to like release some of that negative energy and get recharged. But yeah, I would say that I've seen too many people jump into starting a company because they think like it's cool and it's fun. And yeah, I mean, it can be, but it's almost like you got to enjoy torture a little bit. Um, so that's a big one. And I know it's been talked about before. Um, yeah, the other one I would say is like you really, really want you really need to want it because the expected value of starting a company is it's like very low for most people. There's only a few people where it's incredibly high, and you may be better off just like getting a really good job or joining a company that you're really excited about and you believe has a lot of upside, and just finding a way of participating in that upside, right? Which is it's an entrepreneurial mindset, but it's a little bit different than running your own, or trying to build your own company, and being CEO and so on. And then on the VC side, I mean, I think there's two types of business models in VC. One is um, accumulating a lot of assets that you charge fees on for, to your LPs, and you profit by doing that. And yeah, I mean, you deliver some return, and the return just needs to be good enough to not piss them off completely. And also, so they have a little FOMO, but it doesn't have to be great, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of firms that operate that way, and the firm is very successful. They make a lot of money. The LPs do sort of okay. Um, so the other business model is trying to actually help build great companies and having asymmetric outcomes, where the returns or the performance of the fund is actually what um, creates value for the firm, and then as a result for your LPs, or I guess the other way around, for your LPs and then as a result to the firm. But it's so hard. It's like super, super hard. Um, that similar to entrepreneurship, you really need to want it. And it was a lot easier 10 years ago. I think there's just a lot of capital chasing um, a limited amount of investable opportunities, which is probably going to drive the returns down. Like, and venture capital eventually is going to become probably less interesting as an asset class, or at least when you're investing in things that are better known and better understood. And you almost have to like, if you want to like create the type of returns that are asymmetric, you have to go bet on things that are just crazy, and nobody would touch them, and would think that are ridiculous ideas, and maybe you get them right, and that's how it works out. I mean, that's like the nature of venture capital, but I guess my point is, there's in the whole spectrum of venture capitalists, there's probably a very small amount of people that are actually doing that, like betting on crazy things. And most people want to bet on things that are, as I said, better understood. It's almost like when you hear a term become um, part of the vernacular of a VC, like, oh, what do you invest in? I invest in SaaS. It's too late. Oh, what do you invest in? I invest in vertical software. Too late. Too many people doing it. It needs to be like, what do you invest in? um, you know, I invest in something that nobody's ever heard before. What was that? That's ridiculous. Okay, that's interesting.
Hmm. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me, and I always enjoy hearing your wisdom. So thank you very much.
Likewise, saying good luck with everything, man.
Thank you.
Enjoy it.